Okay, buckle in. We now have another Q&A from the Mountain Blade to Bannerlord War Sales team, and this one actually has some good information. Number one was absolutely abysmal, basically no new information whatsoever about the DLC. However, Q&A number two has some pretty interesting information about the DLC, such as being able to sail on rivers, being able to swim and actually drown on the battlefield, being able to actually become a merchant and have different types of ships where the horses can go on them, the new skills that they're implementing into the game in the DLC, the new port sieges as well. So there is a decent amount here, and with of course the delay of War Sales being pushed back to late fall, I'm hoping the next thing that Tailworlds actually drop for War Sales is going to finally be some gameplay in some way or another. But real quick before we dive into this juicy Q&A, a word from today's sponsor. Want to earn real money by just playing games or taking surveys? Then let me show you free cash. It's one of the fastest ways I've found of making a little extra cash online. You complete simple offers like downloading apps or reaching levels in game, and free cash pays you. You can check out their 4.6 Trustpilot rating with thousands of great reviews, so you know it's legit. The website is also super easy to use. You can pick between iOS, Android, or Windows offers and simply scan a QR code to track your progress on mobile. Just make sure that you have enabled app tracking so you don't miss out on your rewards. I'm currently playing Vikings Rise Valhalla and have already made $6 from just a few simple sessions. It's literally like taking candy from a baby. And you can even get cash back on in-app purchases, which is a nice bonus if you're already spending in-game. And the best part is cashing out is fast. You can use PayPal, crypto, gift cards, you name it, and I personally chose to cash out on PayPal and it was paid within minutes. On top of that, free cash has a $20 minimum to cash out, which is much better than other sites which require you to have $100 in your account. If you want to try free cash, you can sign up using my link below and get a $5 bonus when you finish your first offer. It's honestly one of the smoothest cash apps I've tried, so be sure to check it out down below and let me know what you think. Once again, a big thank you to Free Cash for sponsoring this video. They allow me to continue doing what I'm doing, so I very much do appreciate it. But let's start off with the first bit. We'll basically go down, and I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to check this out for yourself if you want to just kind of get straight to the meat. But the first thing they talk about is, will there be swimming and drowning in the game? And they just simply say, yes, characters can swim, dive, climb back on board, and they'll drown under certain conditions, which is pretty cool. I think we're going to get situations in the game where you get rammed and a bunch of your ships, a bunch of your sailors go flying off the ship and actually have to make an effort to get back on. Again, same when you're boarding, maybe you can like jump off your army, off the boats and swim to the enemy ships. I think this could create some really interesting scenarios in the game. Maybe modders can do this if it's not already in the game, but actually have it where you like kind of stealth attack a ported ship or something along them lines and raid the enemy harbor as you swim in. I think it creates some really interesting stealth gameplay alongside the stealth update that's coming for free in a different section later along, actually alongside War Sales, as they did say that the free patch is coming along War Sales when it drops in full. Next up, they talk about whether or not you'll be able to put horses on ships, the ones in your inventory, increasing your carry capacity and other things on the world map when you're on land. And they basically say, yes, you'll be able to keep mounts in your inventory on ships, but unlike land, they'll actually take up ship inventory instead of providing it. So again, if you want to have a large amount of horses, say you're running a trade caravan and you travel from the Azerai lands up to Sturgium and you want to go off to the Nordlands to sell your goods, then horses are going to be a good boost to you on land, but going to be a burden on sea. You're going to need to have large enough ships to be able to carry that. They also then move on to, will you be able to travel through river systems? And they say, yes, you'll be able to sail on rivers in War Sales, allowing you to reach certain towns and strategic points. Combat on rivers will also be supported with scenes designed to reflect the narrow terrain restrictioned nature of river warfare, which again is really cool. This Q&A is so much better than the previous one. The previous one was just no, and no new information. this one, we're getting some good juicy stuff. So yeah, we're going to be getting custom scenes for the different types of river battles, which is cool. I'm interested to see how it actually functions on the campaign map, because again, we're getting a reimagined Calradia. So where are we going to be seeing rivers? Is there going to be advantages to using the rivers with your ships rather than just moving across land? I imagine there might be some, as long as the rivers like interlink with certain places on the map, there's probably going to be some good places to actually raid enemy caravans who are going from port to port, and also utilizing these rivers to actually put places under siege as well is going to be good, because there is actually naval sieges in this as well. They later go on to talk about if we're going to be able to run merchant vassal like caravans, and they say yes, you'll be able to buy trade caravans from coastal town merchants. You also have the option to be going for standard or armored convoys, with the latter having more troops to protect against pirates. These convoys will travel from one coastal town to another, trading goods and gathering profits, but they will be vulnerable to various threats along the way, so protection matters. So basically, it's just going to be a naval caravan, much like on the land. You're going to be able to choose between a larger garrison protecting it and a smaller one. I always feel like you should be able to deploy troops yourself rather than just pick a pre-amount. Like, if I want to, I should be able to stick that caravan full of kind of armored cataphracts. Yes, that might hurt my profit, but it will keep it alive. But I find caravans are just kind of a roll of the dice whether or not they do good or not, and half the times it's hard to do. It'd also be great to see them actually expand this and being able to create trade caravans and trade routes yourself, decide what goods go into them. We've got a lot of actual work being put into the workshops, so why not trade caravans? It opens up another point of view, opens up another way of playing the game, and I think it's a really big missed opportunity that they haven't kind of designed trade routes for the players and allowing you to actually customize your caravans, put in troops, choose the goods, etc. However, it is what it is. Again, it's just basically going to be merchants, not really that big of a deal. We then get a bit more information about the Nords, which is cool. They're going to be the brand new culture coming into the game with war sales, and they're going to have custom voice lines. They're also going to be getting custom hairstyles, which is good. They say that they're going to have much more of a Scandinavian inspired accent on the campaign map as well. Their voice lines, new voice line presence will also add in-character creation, and they'll also be available to all cultures. This is obviously great. We need this faction to be distinct from Sturgia, and then they move on to actually speaking about that and say, with Nords being added, will the Sturgian troops be modified further to be closer to the Vigirs, avoiding the overlap in style? And then Tailwards respond by saying, we're making some visual and characteristic tweaks to the Sturgians so that they will stand apart from the Nords, but we don't want to make the changes so dramatic that they feel alien to the players who have gotten used to their current design. For example, one of the Sturgian culture bonuses, as well as some Nordic-inspired Sturgian banner icons, will be changed. Likewise, various Nord items previously used by the Sturgian troops and nobles, shields, weapons, armors, and helmets will be redistributed, and new shields will be added. So I'm not 100% sure if this just means that they're going to be reusing assets. It sounds like they're, as they say, redistributing, so that some of the Nords will be wearing some Sturgian armor, etc., if it fits. However, there'll be just as many armors added back into the game to kind of change up and make these factions diverse. As long as that is the case and they're not just reusing assets and saying, oh, it's fine, bro, and not adding in new ones. As long as they're adding in the new armors to replace the ones that they're switching over, I have no problem with that. Again, it's whatever makes the factions look better. Again, the Sturgians are much more Slavic, whereas the Nords are much more Scandinavian. So hopefully that differentiation will be there, and we'll see. And again, there's just more assets being added in to make these factions feel as unique and as fleshed out as all the other ones. They next move on to talk about the 3 brand new skills that we're getting in-game, which are all going to be focused around naval travel, naval combat, and just being a good shipmaster / commander at sea. So they say they're going to be reducing some new ones, and again, all of these are subject to change. They're also going to be bound to pre-existing attributes as well, which is interesting because they say that it's bound to 2. So I wonder how that's going to look like on the UI. We'll have to see when we get some gameplay footages. But first one, we get one that enhances your personal combat prowess during naval engagements and bolsters your effectiveness in leading troops and employing tactics in sea battles. And this is bound to both vigor and endurance, which again is interesting that it's tied to 2 attributes rather than just 1. That's what we're used to. So this one obviously just is all about probably doing more damage on sea combat, probably enhancing like like ramming speed, enhancing your soldiers' ability to fight at sea, and probably just giving them better handling, maybe being able to like just move faster at sea, and just overall up the combat efficiency of your crew and your soldiers. The next one we get is governs the well-being and discipline of your ship crew, as well as the vessel's overall combat readiness, including rigging and supplies, bound to social and intelligence. So I think this one's going to be much more about the actual logistics of your ships, being able to maybe not take as many supplies whilst you're at sea, maybe boosting your speed at sea, things like that, maybe giving you more capacity on ships, etc. I imagine this one's going to be much more like a leadership style, but just at sea. And then the final one we get is to improve your navigation abilities. So actually, maybe this one's a bit more about moving fast and being able to like use the wind more effectively. They say this is also important for naval siege engines under your command, and the speed and quality of your ship repairs and upgrades. So there is going to be quite a bit. They haven't touched on it yet to actually building your fleet out and customizing your ships. You can customize your ships with siege engines and stuff, which is going to be really interesting, not only for naval sieges, being able to like besiege a town by sea and then launch an assault just from that, but I'm also very excited to actually see like combined sieges. I think they've hinted at it previously, but there's going to be the ability to blockade the enemy forces and also siege them from the land as well. So hopefully there's a way to combine that, and that'll be something that's very cool if that is the case. But there might be a situation where you siege like kind of them separately and you have to play out both battles. Again, that would be cool to see nonetheless. We also see, will inland water bodies be covered by ice during winter? And they say no, there won't be pathfinding or traversable changes due to season. A little bit disappointing. I feel like they could just not. I mean, I guess it's important to have these no's in here so people can understand what's gonna be in the game, but I feel like every time there's like a really cool thing, like this would be cool if this was the case, and then they're just like, no, it won't be. I don't know, I feel like they could just do the yeses and people can kind of gather that's the case. But yeah, I don't know, every time they say a no, I'm just a bit like, oh, okay, that would have been cool, that's a really cool idea, and no, we're not getting it. Okay, fair enough. A few quick ones now is, we'll be getting campaign and sandbox models to be supported in war sales. They say yes, both will be supported, and I believe in the campaign as well, the story campaign, we'll be getting another storyline as well to go along with naval stuff, which is cool. So again, a bit more story content from a game that has no story content is always good. Will you start a new campaign with a free ship? No, but you'll be able to afford them pretty easily. I imagine you'll be able to probably fight some bandits, get a couple thousand gold, and then sail out on your first sloop to actually go ahead and do your stuff. They also mentioned, did they rework city scenes to make docks or separate scenes? And they do mention that they're going to be separate scenes. So that again makes me kind of think like it's going to be separate sieges as well, rather than a combined siege. If the naval side of things is, you can't just basically walk into it when you're when you're walking around the town, you can't just walk to the naval stuff. You have to basically go up to something and enter it like a tavern. But then this is also cool because it means we're going to be getting several new scenes for the port stuff, so they're going to feel quite unique and different to every single culture, so I necessarily don't mind too much. Then move on to saying, any chance we know how many ships we'll be able to actually own? And they say that there technically isn't any limit. You'll be able to, on the campaign map, own as many ships as you want, but you'll need a certain amount of troops to actually operate these ships. So it's going to be relying more on your troop capacity and how many soldiers you can have to then dictate how many ships you can actually have in your armada. This can be pretty well negated a lot of the time with the right laws. When you're running your own faction, you can have up to like 500 soldiers, and that can just keep going up with max leadership and stuff. So I imagine you're going to have some pretty big stuff. I actually really like this, that there is no technical limit, and I imagine with the skills as well, you're going to be able to probably reduce the amount of soldiers that you actually need to actually sail these ships. Again, another cool way of linking it in, so I like that quite a bit. I wish this system was applied to the actual troop capacity of your armies. I always found it kind of a little bit frustrating, but I was always tied to troop capacity by some random arbitrary thing. I'd much rather it be tied to my financial ability. you know, every time I go, like, I wish I had the ability to go over your troop limit. Say you can have 20 soldiers, but every time you go over that 20 soldier limit, say I have 25 men, they don't just desert because of whatever. They just cost me like 110% of what they cost. And maybe every time I go up from that, like every 5 soldiers, so say I can have 20 soldiers, but I'm at 30, again, instead of them just deserting, maybe each soldier now costs me 150% of their upkeep rather than that. It's like to kind of talk about the administration effect that's on your units. Now, I don't think they'll ever implement this because I imagine the AI would not understand how that works. But yeah, I've always been really frustrated of like, I have all this money and I can't have bigger armies and I'm just sat here with it. I feel like it'd be such a good money sink to be able to force players to focus on having a strong economy so they can go over that troop limit and do their thing. Maybe some modders will see this and actually implement that, because I think it's such a cool idea and allows you to have these massive armies if you can afford it, if you've got the backbone. Anyway, that was a tangent, but Tale Worlds, please add it. Then the last couple things that we do get are just, will you be able to have multiple fleets in Tale Worlds? Say you'll be able to only own a single fleet, but the extra parties in your clan will have their own one, and I imagine you'll be able to allocate them extra ships and stuff as well. They don't say too much to that, but you'll be able to have basically a fleet per party that you can bring to bear. They then talk about tattoo artists in town, and they say it's planned to only be accessible during the initial character creation. So basically, if you get a tattoo, you've got a tattoo for life. And then finally, you will be able to gain a broad amount of personality traits from the new random event mechanic. However, again, I feel like unless they do something with personality traits, they're just pointless. I've got over 1,000 hours in the game and I've never messed around or cared about personality traits, so there needs to be a little bit of extra something there. And then finally, we also get some stuff about modding. Again, this is all bloody alien talk to me. I have no idea what this is. Hopefully it's good stuff and the modders have got a bit out of it. So that's going to wrap things up for Q&A number 2. I feel like this one is much better than the previous one. Hopefully the next thing we see from War Sales is going to finally be some gameplay, even if it's just like a 5-minute video showing a bit more about naval combat or skills. You know, you don't necessarily have to even show off naval combat. Just show us a few of the other things like the UI and stuff. I think would be quite cool to build up some hype. And hey, Tale Worlds, if you want to sponsor like an edited Let's Play, feel free to hit me up. I'm more than happy to go ahead and put something together. But let me know what you guys thought of the Q&A down below. Is there anything that's really stood out to you? Are you disappointed about? Are you interested in? Obviously, until we finally get some actual like hardcore gameplay, it's hard to say whether or not War Sales will be a flop. And it also, again, very much depends on the actual price of the product as well. They haven't announced how much it's going to cost, so that's going to heavily dictate, you know, if it's going to be worth picking up for you or not. But don't worry, I'll be here to let you guys know and give my honest opinion whether it's going to be good or bad. I will be sure to tell you. So make sure if you haven't already, drop a like, drop a comment down below. It helps out massively. Subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.